talking about planning this big prison break with all the villains, and he actually references Lost in his speech, and it's on YouTube. But he actually references Lost, and he references a couple other things, and I found that really, really cool. The fighting in this game, I think the way Warner Brothers went with this is they tried to recreate fighting scenes from old school Batman games. If you remember back on video game consoles like Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, video games like Batman Returns and Batman Forever are games that were based on movies, because back in the 90s, Warner Brothers would release a Batman game based on that year's Batman movie, and the Batman movies go from 1989 right up until 1997. They would release video games based on the movies. I think the hardest one I played of the movie ones was Batman Forever, and there was another one for PlayStation. I think it was called Batman and Robin. There were two different versions of the Batman and Robin video game. I will talk about that in a minute. He's actually in Arkham City too, which is really cool. And the Robin in the game looks absolutely outstanding. If you remember back when they would release, those games for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, the fight scenes were you'd walk so far in the game with your directional pad, and then you would use your A or B button on the Super Nintendo or the Sega Genesis to punch and do kick combinations. In this, you use your square button and you use your X button, and I believe your triangle button is your counter. And you might have to fight, say, anywhere from 5 to 10 characters to a time, 5 to 10 henchmen to a time. If the difficulty level is set on hard, it takes about 10 minutes to kill one. If you know what you're doing on easy, you can kill them instantly. But the combination of attacks and the fighting scenes between the henchmen of the villains, between yourself and the henchmen of the villains, is absolutely outstanding. I mean, there's so many different combinations, and the final blow that you give to a character is actually done in slow motion. When you kill the final henchman in a combination attack, it is absolutely outstanding. I love it just for the fighting scenes alone. And from what I'm getting here on YouTube.com, some of the reviews you guys are giving, you love the game just for the fighting alone. You don't really care about fighting the villains in the final sequences, like you do for Penguin and things like that after you free Mr. Freeze. You love the game for the fact that you can do these outstanding combinations and fight all these guys at once. Some of them are armed with guns. That's a bit of a pain in the ass. Some of them, have baseball bats and different things, but they're easily countered. You love the game because of the fighting, and I'm one guy who loves it just for the fighting sequences alone. If the fighting sequences weren't as outstanding as they are, I probably wouldn't like this game as much. I'd probably like it for the videos and the voiceovers and things, but I probably wouldn't like it as much. The fighting in this Batman game is absolutely outstanding, and I mean, I could walk around Arkham City because, I mean, the map in the game is huge. I could walk around for hours and not do any objectives, no side missions, no nothing, and just love it for the fighting sequences because it's outstanding. How you can counter stuff with the triangle button, the square button is your attack button, and the lethal blow, which is actually done in slow motion when you kill the final henchman out of a combination, is awesome too. And as you go along and progress through the game, your fighting abilities increase, and you can upgrade with your grid, and you can also upgrade your different gadgets. I'll talk about your gadgets here now, next here. But, I think it's so amazing. The fighting in the game is absolutely awesome, and I rate that 5 out of 5 on a 5-star scale because I've never played a Batman game where the fighting is so realistic and so, authentic. I remember fighting on the original Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis games, and it was just like, you had one button, and I think another button was a kick button, and the combinations weren't all that detailed. We have come so far with fighting sequences and stuff. It is outstanding. I really like how, the fighting has really been upgraded to this outstanding thing. The Predator technology they use in this game is outstanding, and from what I'm getting here on YouTube, you guys like it too. The gadgets that you can use in this Batman game, there are a variety of different gadgets that you earn through gameplay, and as you progress through, you get a new gadget to add to your arsenal. You have your grapple gun, you have your batarang, you have your smoke bombs, and you have, a combination of, old school Batman gadgets that you remember from the 80s, and you have some new ones thrown in there too. Like, I can't ever remember having to use an electric charger, which he uses to open up different doors. The smoke bombs and the grapple gun and the batarang was great too. The remote control batarang, I think I remember that from somewhere. But you have a lot of different gadgets which are cool, and you can actually control some of the gadgets with the directional stick on the PlayStation and the Xbox, so that's kind of really cool too. It's somewhat of a pain having to use different gadgets for different areas of the game. Like sometimes you might have to use your batarang to open up doors with switches. Sometimes you might have to grapple from one area to the next. You might have to glide somewhere. That's probably the easiest thing you have to do in the game. The glide button, of course, is the X button after you jump from one area to the next. There's a pain in, switching between gadgets because sometimes you might have to use different ones for different reasons. Especially when you get a new gadget, you have to use that an awful lot before the novelty of the gadget dies down. That's what I find. That's a bit of a pain, but the fighting will kind of make up for that, because after you use gadgets to get to certain areas, you have to kill maybe 5 or 10 guys at once. So it's kind of cool. I like how you have to sneak around too in the game. You have to sneak up behind different characters so they don't notice you, and you have to use your smoke bomb to cover yourself up and kind of camouflage yourself. I like that too. But the gadgets are cool. I like how they have the original Batman gadgets from like 1980s movies, and they have new ones that you've never seen Batman use before. Although I think I can remember the remote control batarang from some Batman movie many years ago. It's cool. The fighting and the gadgets really make it an outstanding game. Videos in this game, as I said, the PlayStation, if you're familiar with the PlayStation and the Xbox games, you know that we've gone from compact discs on the original PlayStation to DVDs on PlayStation 2 to now Blu-ray images on Blu-ray video games for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. The videos in Batman Arkham City are the closest thing you're going to get to a movie. It's almost like sitting down, watching a Batman movie come to life on your favorite video game console. Honest to Christ. It's just like a Batman movie coming to life. It's almost like The Dark Knight has been turned into a video game. And originally when I saw the televised trailers for this video game, the ones that were put together for TV, I thought that the villains were created and derived off of the Dark Knight movie, which was released back in 2008. The Rise of the Dark Knight is coming out in July of this year, and I'm really excited about that. They'll probably have another video game released for that. In anticipation of this one, they really didn't do much other than release Batman Year One on Blu-ray, which I had an opportunity to see. It's a cartoon from probably the early 90s. But I think that the videos in this game are the closest thing you're going to get to a Batman movie. It's like watching a Batman movie come to life. And I was really happy to learn that the characters surprisingly weren't derived from the Batman Dark Knight movie. They were, a mixture between a cast of British voiceovers and characters who did voiceovers for the Batman and Robin animated series back in the 90s. That was a Warner Brothers cartoon that would air on Saturday mornings. The guy who does the voice for the Joker is the guy who did the one for the Batman and Robin animated series. The girl who does the voice for Harley, who's the Joker's wife in the game, is the original one from the Batman and Robin series. There is a mixture between retro voices and a mixture of retro voices and British voices. I'm not really too struck on the Penguin being voiced by a British man in the game, though. But I really like how they brought back some of the retro voices and brought in a new cast of voices too. The original Batman does the voice for the Batman character in Batman Arkham City too. The guy who did the voice for the Batman and Robin show. Basically, everyone who did voiceovers for the Batman and Robin series are back for this. So the videos and the voiceovers are great. I really, really like the videos and the voiceovers because it kind of makes me feel like I'm watching the Saturday morning version of Batman and Robin, which had a really cool video game. for Super Nintendo. If you want to talk old school Batman video games, my favorite one out of the series was the Batman and Robin video game for Super Nintendo, the animated one. I wasn't too struck in the Batman and Robin video game released for PlayStation, which was an adaptation of the 1997 film Batman and Robin, where you had to fight Mr. Freeze. He's a huge part of Batman Arkham City, by the way. I think that one for Super Nintendo was far more superior and more fun to play for me than the one for PlayStation. I played the one for Super Nintendo and the one for PlayStation pretty close together, and my favorite one of the two different versions was Batman and Robin for Super Nintendo. And if you're able to find an old copy of it at a flea market somewhere, definitely pick it up, or definitely look it up on YouTube. Or what I like doing is downloading a video game ROM to play on your computer. It's really cool. But I like the videos, and I like the voiceovers for the game because it's really cool. The original cast of Batman and Robin are back. I like how the guy does the voice for Batman, who was a part of the Batman and Robin series. And by the way, Robin in this video game with the hood and everything looks absolutely amazing. As far as I'm concerned, he should have his own cartoon series released just on him alone. He definitely makes Arkham City worth paying $45 for, and if it's not on sale, it's definitely worth every penny just for the videos and the voiceovers. As I said, closest thing you're going to get to a movie here, and if you've seen the trailer for the Batman video game, you know what I'm talking about. Closest thing you're going to get to a movie, and we have Blu-ray images and Blu-ray discs to thank for that. I think ultimately what it comes down to is the fact that we're entering a time, we're coming into an age where 5 years from now, I'm giving it half of a decade, we're going to be playing playable movies on video game consoles. That's what we're going to be playing. We're going to exit the stage of video games that look like movies and enter a stage, come into an era where we're going to be playing playable movies on video game consoles like PlayStation 4 and whatever one Microsoft puts out after Xbox 360's novelty dies down. I think that's what we're eventually going to enter, because that's what it seems like. I mean, if you've played video games like WWE 12, Batman Arkham City, some of the new ones even they have for Nintendo DS, even though it's Super Nintendo graphics on a more updated portable version of Game Gear, I think that's what we're coming into and eventually progressing towards are playable movies on video game consoles, because you have video game consoles now that can do more than a computer can do with the movies and the Blu-ray and everything.